It is Wednesday, September 2nd, 2022, and this is the iPhoneography Podcast. Hi, everyone. Greg McMillan here for the iPhoneography Podcast. This is the day that Apple had just had their 2022 fall event for the new iPhone. They introduced a new lineup of iPhones, the 14 series. They also talked about some Apple Watches and AirPods Pro. Since this is a photography podcast, we're going to focus more on just the iPhones and their camera systems. And Dave was going to be here to record, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. But he does have some thoughts about a couple of different things. I'll throw his thoughts out here right now. He sent me a message to say that the iPhone Pro, the iPhone 14 Pro is a small upgrade from the 13 and maybe even from the 12, but it depends on what you want there. I guess it depends if you want the latest and greatest or if you're quite happy to keep what you have. I have the 12 Pro Max, and for me, with what I do, I think this is going to be a significant upgrade. And if you have anything from the iPhone 11 down, I would say it's going to be a pretty good upgrade. But there are those who want to get as many years as they can out of their device, and that's more than fine. But because we do this podcast, it's Dave has the 13 Pro Max, so I don't believe he will be upgrading. And with me on the 12 Pro Max, I'm going to be upgrading because it's nice to be able to talk about the latest and greatest in the iPhone camera systems. Another thing that he commented on was that the action mode was nice, a nice touch with the video. I'll get more on that in a bit, but it basically eliminates the use of a gimbal. So it was pretty good on the 12 Pro Max, even better on the 13 Pro, I'm sure. And so those are a couple of things that he just sent me a short message to say what his thoughts were, and he commented on the new terminology that they're giving some things, but like photonic engine, things like that. Just to say that some of these things are possibly a little strange, and I can't say I have to say I agree with him on that. But anyway, let's get into I got some notes here that I took while the event was playing, and I'll just kind of go over some things and give my initial thoughts on them. The iPhone 14. It will now come in a plus size. There was a lot of speculation that it would be called the iPhone 14 Max, but no, it's the 14 and the 14 Plus. And the display will be an OLED display with Dolby Vision and ceramic shield. That was probably pretty much expected. And let's see here. Now, the 14 models will have the A15 Bionic, which is what the iPhone 13 Pro models had last year. It's still a very, very stout chipset, and absolutely nothing wrong with leaving that in the 14, just the regular 14 models, to keep the prices down a little bit. The camera system, now it has the wide and the ultra wide. And I'm just looking up the specs here. So size wise, it's not going to be much different than the 13s, I don't imagine. Other than the Plus, of course. So the camera system. Okay, so the main camera, they call it now. It used to be called the wide camera, but now they seem to be wanting to call it the main camera. It's 12 megapixel, 26 millimeter focal length equivalent to like a standard camera or traditional camera. f1.5 aperture, sensor shift optical image stabilization, and 7 element lens with 100% focus pixels. The ultra wide, again at 12 megapixels, is equivalent to 13 millimeter. F2.4, and I don't know, I should have looked up to see how these compare to the 13 lineup, but I think they're pretty close. And 2 times optical zoom, digital zoom up to 5 times on that phone. It has the usual suspects here: deep fusion, smart HDR4, portrait mode with advanced bokeh and depth control. One thing that's new is what Dave alluded to is this photonic engine, and I I honestly don't remember exactly what that did, but I think it has something to do with implementing deep fusion into the workflow of the image making process on an uncompressed image. Um, so it's doing some things ahead of time on the uncompressed image that will eventually have a better effect on how the photo turns out. And as far as the cameras go on the 14, that's pretty much it for anything that's like notable, right? Any notable changes. Well, there is lens correction on the ultra wide. I'm not sure if that was available before or not, but they really didn't elaborate too much on the camera system other than showing, wonderfully taking sample images and that sort of thing. Um, about the phone itself, they went on about the connectivity, going to eSIM. There's no SIM tray available on any US models. And the crash detection, that was something that was introduced in the watch just earlier in the presentation. So if you're it's like fall detection. So if you fell and you weren't moving, your watch would come up and say, are you, we've noticed you have fallen. Are you okay? And if you didn't respond, then it would just automatically call 911. So the phone has the same thing with crash detection. The watch too, actually. It has this, extra gyros and things like that, and measures G-force and whatnot. So, that's just a safety or whatever thing that was put into the devices. So there was a lot of speculation what their invitation meant. Far out. It said far out with some stars and all that stuff. And one of the things that was talked about a lot was satellite connectivity. So yes, the phone, the iPhone 14, all models have this emergency SOS feature where if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you have no connection to a cellular tower, you can turn this thing on and it will find a satellite. And as long as you keep tracking that satellite, don't let it get out of a certain angle of view from the phone, then you'll be able to get a hold of people and get help sent to you, whether it's through SMS or voice or whatever. They've got a lot of technology that they've put together for this feature. And this is going to be a free service for 2 years with the purchase of an iPhone 14. And it'll be available in US and Canada in November. So as far as the 14 goes, the starting price is, and these are in US dollars because that's what they talk about on there, $799 starting price US. And I'm just going to look to see. Okay, so it starts at 128 gigabyte, and this is for both the 14 and the 14 Plus. 128 gigabyte is the smallest one you can get. Then it goes to 256 and 512. So it will start at $799 for the iPhone 14, 128 gig. And the iPhone 14 Plus will be $899 for the 128. And I believe these are the same price points that they had for the 13 last year. Maybe the 13 mini and the 13, I'm not sure. But, so it's nice to see that they didn't, jack these up $100 to start. So pre-order for the iPhone 14 is on the 9th, and it will be available on the 26th. and I think you could pre-order the Plus as well on the same day, September 9th. And but it's not available till October 7th, I believe. So they're kind of staggering the release of those ones. Okay, so the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max, they don't have the notch as we've seen since the iPhone 10, but they do have what's been called like a pill-shaped cutout at the top of the screen where the um, FaceTime camera, the true depth camera, and all that stuff is. The um, what they're calling this though is they're not calling it a pill shaped cutout or anything else. They're calling it a dynamic island because what happens with this is that it will, it looks black in appearance, but if you get a notification or something like that, it expands. Visually, it expands to, accommodate whatever function it needs to, and it works basically system wide, and it will be opened up for third party apps in the down the road here, I guess, and it will be able to show you your timer status if you're running a timer. It'll show you sports scores, like they've shown in iOS 16. There's just so many different things that this will do, and it looks so cool that I think it's going to be a really very nice feature, both visually and functionally. So the colors, sorry, I didn't get the colors for the 14 models. Hopefully I'll get them in a minute. But the colors for the Pro lineup, of course, everybody was thinking purple, and sure enough, there is a purple. It's not a real bright purple, not a real dark purple, just kind of something in between. It's got the nice steel rim around the outside, nice and shiny and slippery. I can attest to that with the 12 Pro Max. But it has purple, space black, they call it, gold, and silver. The silver looks more like a white one, but I think that's what they called it. I was hoping for like a midnight blue in this lineup, but they've gone purple, and I'm not getting that. I'm going to go with I guess I'll be going with the space black. I used to get space gray all the time until the Pacific blue came out in the 12 Pro Max. Anyway, okay, so biggest disappointment for me, there was no um, astrophotography mode of any sort shown, although they did talk a lot about low light improvements and whatnot. So I'm sure that this phone will do astrophotography quite nicely, even better than anything we've seen out of an iPhone prior to this. So they're talking thinner borders, 1600 nits for the brightness of the screen, and in the bright sun, it'll go up to 2000 nits, which is the brightest they've ever had. I think they said that this is basically the same display as the Pro XDR monitors that they sell. So if that's the case, it's going to be pretty good. Always on display. That was there was a lot of speculation for that, and sure enough, there it is. And the low power mode will take it down to 1 hertz. So that's pretty impressive, because you'll be able to see the screen and see what's on the screen. Even things like, if you're keeping track of a ball game or something like that, and if they show the sports scores, that'll still be available on the always on display. You won't even have to touch your phone. I'm not sure what else. There's different things that they're going to be able to show on the always on display, and it's going to be pretty good. A16 Bionic, that was pretty much a guarantee, and it's the geek talk would say 16 billion transistors and 17 trillion operations per second, all that stuff. As far as in photography goes, the camera will have 4 trillion operations per photo. That is mind-blowing, because I mean, what kind of operations are we talking about here? There's the imaging pipeline, sure, but I mean, what is it doing that takes 14 trillion operations to produce a photo? It's just crazy. So biggest news, I think, about the camera system is the 48 megapixel sensor, on the main camera, and they're calling it a quad pixel sensor. So that's basically the pixel binning that a lot of people have been talking about. Oddball f-stop size, f1.78 on the main camera. Let's see if I can find the specs on the cameras. Okay, so the 48 megapixel main camera is 24 millimeter equivalent, f1.78 aperture, second generation sensor shift optical image stabilization, 7-element lens, 100% focus pixels. The 12 megapixel ultra wide is equivalent to 13 millimeter, and it's f2.2 with 120 degree field of view. And 6-element lens, 100% focus pixels. So they threw something else in here. You can get a 12. Okay, so the 48 megapixel main camera sensor will give you in Pro RAW, I believe, a 48 megapixel image. And they've also got here 12 megapixel 2 times telephoto, enabled by the quad pixel sensor. So it's a focal length equivalent of 48 millimeter with the f1.78 aperture. So this new camera system, I haven't really been able to wrap my head around it yet, because when you open up the camera app, if you have a 3-camera iPhone, you've got your 0.5, which is your ultra wide. You got your 1x, which is your wide, or main now, as they call it. And then you've got your 2x or 3x or 2.5x, whatever your telephoto is. Well, now they've got 0.5, 1, 2, and 3 on the Max, or on the iPhone 14 Pro. So it's 3 times optical zoom, and on the telephoto, let's see here. So the telephoto is a 77 millimeter equivalent, f2.8, and it has the usual optical image stabilization and all that stuff. 3 times optical zoom in, 2 times optical zoom out, which is interesting. 6 times optical zoom range, digital zoom up to 15 times. So I don't have a 13 Pro, so I can't really say, how that compares, because I just didn't fully involve my mind into the camera system on the 13 Pros, because I didn't have one. But it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. But they showed massively large prints. I would say, basically maybe 4 feet by 5 feet on a wall, that they're saying came from the 48 megapixel Pro RAW files. So printing large from an iPhone is coming into its own here, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. They made an adaptive True Tone flash, or I think it was always adaptive, but they've revamped the True Tone flash. It's going to be better, I guess. I'm not one to use it, so I don't know. Photonic engine, that's something I don't know if I can see it in the overview on the Apple website or not, but it again, it's got to do with the imaging pipeline and low light stuff and all that stuff. I mean, I'm sure to make it, to make the images better. Let's see here. Pro Video, they've made improvements to the video capabilities with the same as the 14, with the lack of need for a gimbal. There's something else that they did mention too, and I should have picked up on this sooner than this in my little chat here, is the improved macro capabilities from the ultra wide. Maybe that's where this photonic engine comes into play. I'm not sure, but this stuff is also new that I just I stopped watching it and started recording. So I haven't been able to really wrap my head around everything too closely here. But the sample image that they showed for a macro was pretty darn impressive. It has some better, in my opinion, better looking depth of field, the way it displays the depth of field. Um, Again, I don't have the 13 Pro, so I've never been able to try a macro shot with that. I've seen many of online, but um, it just looks like it's going to be much better. Um, but I've always said, for macro, you have to have an external lens to do a proper, good, high quality macro image. But looking at this, I mean, um, I am going to be ordering the 14 Pro Max, so it'll be interesting to see how this compares to actually using a lens. And I can't wait to try that out. But that's a quick rundown of the 14 Pro and the 14 and the 14 Pro. I wish I had a more better analysis to give you, but like I say, I just stopped watching it on TV and came right here and started recording and just going over the notes that I have here. So it'll be interesting to see how the review videos and whatnot come out. I will have a much better idea on September 26th when I actually get my phone to be able to explain things and maybe even show things through posting and whatnot online. So the only other thing I wanted to mention was that in the watch, there's the Apple Watch Ultra, and I believe it starts at $10.99 US. Not for me. As nice as it looks, it's simply not for me, not for my lifestyle. I don't go scuba diving. I don't go running through deserts and all this stuff. Like, it is for extreme outdoor enthusiasts or pro athletes or whatever. So, I mean, give it a look online. There's going to be a link in the show notes to the Apple website where I'm going to point to the iPhone page, but you can go and look at the Apple Watch and AirPods Pro and stuff like that they announced. And I encourage you to go to the website, look at the Apple or look at the iPhone stuff. Sorry, to get a better idea of what I've been just rambling on here about. And I don't have Dave here to save my butt with some of my ramblings, but I just wanted to get this out there and give you an idea of what's coming. If you haven't been able to, if you weren't able to see the event, you can take a listen to this and kind of get an idea of what's coming. I think the camera system is going to be pretty good, and like like Dave said in his message to me, if you're on a like a 10R or 11 series iPhone, it's definitely a good upgrade. If you're on the 12 Pro Max or 13 Pro Max, think about it. Think about it before you want to upgrade. If you don't think you really need some of these new features, then definitely don't spend the money. But if you're a real enthusiast like I am, and you want the latest and greatest, by all means, go for it. And I guess that is about it. You can find Dave on Instagram, and let me get these notes here so I can tell you exactly where to find him. There you go. You can find him on Instagram at ProfPod, on Twitter at ProfPod, I believe, on TikTok at ProfPodPGH, I think his Twitter handle is. And you can find me on Glass at my name is just at Greg on Glass. You can find me on Vero. I believe Dave's on Vero as well at ProfPod. You can find me on Vero just at McMillan. On Instagram, McMillan Photo, which I don't post there too much anymore, but on Twitter, McMillan_photo, and my website is mcmillan.photos, and the podcast website, iPhoneography.ca. Sorry for such a scrambled rambling about this about this event, but I'm always a nervous wreck when I'm just talking to myself and looking at a screen. It's so much easier when Dave's here and I can talk to him about stuff like this, and we can go back and forth. But I guess that's it for now for the iPhone event in September of 2022. We'll see you on the next one.